What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to talk to you about today with this severe weather, not exactly severe weather, with this winter weather threat that we have going on across much of the I-70 corridor. Currently, there is heavy snow falling over St. Louis, and we are starting to see snow heading towards Indianapolis as well. We're going to be giving you some quick updates on that as well. However, we are also watching a more long-term threat for Texas, for parts of the South, and for parts of the Mid-Atlantic region, as the Europeans been pretty consistently showing another snowstorm hitting in that region. So we're going to go ahead and dive through all of that right here, and let's go ahead and start with what we have currently going on with this snowstorm. Basically, things have continued to evolve with the National Weather Service. There's been blizzard warnings in effect. There's winter storm warnings in effect all the way to the East Coast now for parts of southern Maryland, all of Delaware, all of West Virginia, except for, I think, one county, and most of New Jersey. Pittsburgh's under a winter weather advisory like I called last night. Most, like the bottom 2/3 of Indiana are under a winter storm warning. Much of Kentucky's under a winter storm warning. We're going to briefly go through a lot of these very quickly so we can give you an idea of what's going on and what we could be expecting going forward. Here's what we have for Kansas City. We have a blizzard warning now for downtown Kansas City right here. Blizzard conditions, additional snow accumulations of 6 to 14 inches and ice accumulations around a light glaze. Winds gusting as high as 45 miles per hour. There were a lot of spin-ups and a lot of accidents last night in Kansas City, in that metro area. If you are in Kansas City, if you are in St. Louis, if you are in Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Dayton, Louisville, Lexington, Richmond, and even the Washington, D.C. and Baltimore area, do not travel. In fact, the storm's going to be hitting the East Coast in those regions tonight, so you got to be taking this very, very seriously as we continue to get more data and information for you guys. St. Louis is a bit vague, but they're calling for 4 to 12 inches of snow depending on where the rain-sleet line eventually goes, which, by the way, I've been watching that line, and based on current observations as well as radar from people I've been talking to, the rain-sleet line is generally hovering just south of St. Louis City in the western suburbs. I know in Chesterfield, for example, Wildwood, those areas, it's sleeting right now, but in areas in Illinois, like St. Clair County, like Belleville down south, it's sleeting. But in areas like St. Louis City, Madison County, north, are seeing snow, very heavy snow actually. From this, they're kind of in that sweet spot if you want a crap ton of snow. So that's where this line is set up. The storm pushed further to the south, like we were talking about last night on stream, and when I was on David's stream for a little bit last night. Shout out to David Schlotthauer for having me on continuously. I really appreciate all the work he does for this and having me on. But regardless, it looks like the expectations we saw last night are currently going on. At least the good news is downtown St. Louis and the immediate suburbs around there aren't seeing as much sleet as we originally were concerned about. But the bad news is that puts the sleet and the freezing line further to the south to areas that have not seen a winter weather event like this in several years. There's going to be a lot of power outages that are going to be caused. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and look at the power outages right now for Power Outage US right here. Here's the power outages that we have right here. In Missouri, 22,000 people are without power. Majority of them are in the southeast Missouri region in the Ozark Plateau, and that's because there's a lot of ice and sleet that's falling over there. Not nearly as many in Kansas City because they're getting mostly snow now, but that's what we have generally going on right now. In Kansas, we have about 6,000 people without power. I expect those power outages to increase in Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, especially into Ohio, West Virginia, and Maryland. We're going to have to pay attention to that, but already we are seeing a lot of severe impacts from this winter storm, not just with the snow, but also with severe weather. We have an enhanced risk of severe weather. We have a 10-hatch tornado risk and a 30% wind risk associated with this. I think the 10-hatch tornado risk is only going to last a couple of hours in terms of the threat for it before it becomes very linear very quickly, and that cold front pushes through the south and brings a lot of Arctic air to the region over there, so we are going to have to pay very close attention to that as well. and kind of looking at the future cast for what we're seeing for a lot of these areas in like that haven't gotten exactly snow yet. Not gotten snow yet has been very concerning to say the very least. We can finally start using all the current runs for impacts. We're not gonna we'll show you the precip type, and we'll also show you what's going on with that as well. We'll use the 12Z for the HER right here. We'll generally use 12Z runs unless we absolutely can't. 12Z HER has the system moving through the St. Louis region. If you're in Evansville, if you're near Terre Haute, you're looking like you could see some freezing rain as that line pushes further up to the north before you get the backhand and get a lot of some more snow from this, several inches in the span of a couple of hours. Cincinnati's going to start out as snow and then become more sleet and freezing rain before getting the back end side of it as well. If we go ahead and shift to the mid-Atlantic region, snowfall is going to start in Washington, D.C. tonight around 9 o'clock or so. And you're also looking at snowfall happening in Richmond starting around 7 to 8. And it's going to start off as snow. It's going to mainly be snow as that sleet line kind of evaporates into rain and snow as that inversion finally gets choked out. And ultimately, what you're going to see is Maryland, like especially D.C. and Baltimore, you are going to get a lot of snow from this. It's going to come in as two waves. The first wave will be throughout the overnight and in the morning on Monday, and then the second wave will start Monday afternoon and go on into the late evening on Tuesday. So that's what we have going on for that. Let's go ahead and show you the total snow accumulations with this from the HER. Total snow accumulations right now, they are wanting 16 inches of snow in Washington, D.C., and about 10 in Baltimore. If that HER run holds, you are in for quite the storm. Flights are going to get canceled. It's going to be very hard to travel, especially in Virginia, West Virginia, and southern Maryland. But regardless of that, snow accumulations continue to be a concern for those areas that are currently waiting to see more snow. The HER, by the end of this, wants to give St. Louis almost 18 inches of snow, which I'm going to be brutally honest, I think that's a little far-fetched. I personally think like anywhere between 12 and 18 inches, considering this southward shift, is plausible at this current point, but not 18, like not anything higher than 18 or so, so we're going to have to pay attention to that. And I don't even think 17 is that realistic, honestly, unless the system continues to overperform. And let's go ahead and show you the wrap as well. The wrap wants more snow to fall as well. Continual snowfall accumulation. Most of it's going to be north of St. Louis. Most of it's going to be west of Kansas City and north of Kansas City and the Kansas City suburbs as well. But regardless, we're still potentially going to see over a foot of snow going forward as well. And even in D.C. and Maryland, let's go ahead and show you the NAM. NAM's a bit more conservative with this. Right here, calling for about 10 inches of snow in parts of Maryland, the Northern Virginia area. It's not nearly as widespread, but regardless, we still have this situation to deal with. NAM, a similar situation, a lot more compact, not nearly as widespread. NAM Nest, you're still looking at a good amount of snow for a lot of these areas in the Midwest as well, as we continue to get more data and information for you guys. I'm not buying these 20-plus inch snowfall rates that are still expected in parts of Kansas right here. Personally, I don't see that happening unless the back end of it is way stronger than what we were originally anticipated. But at this current point, I just don't buy it right now. And that's what we have going on. The Mid-Atlantic still putting DC in the line of fire. We're seeing very consistently DC, line of fire, DC, line of fire, DC, line of fire, DC, line of fire. It's through all of these runs that we're seeing right here, and we can go ahead and show you the 12Z GFS as well. Every single one of these models is putting Washington, D.C. and Baltimore in the line of fire. You're going to get a lot of snow from this, and you're still going to get a lot of snow if you are in Indianapolis, St. Louis, Cincinnati, and West Virginia, and all those areas as well, as we continue to look at the information that we continue to present to you guys. However, while we continue to watch this system, I am also a little concerned about another potential area of a potential snowstorm that the European especially has been picking up on for a lot of areas in Texas, starting in Texas and then moving into the mid-Atlantic region and those areas right now. Granted, it is a little early to be talking about it, but because there's been a consistent trend with it from the Euro, and even the GFS and GEM GDPS is picking up on it to some extent, this is something I do want to touch on because this could bring a lot of snow not just for the Washington, D.C. area, which is already seeing over a foot of snow, in my opinion, based on these latest trends from this first snowstorm. Winter Storm Blair, as the Weather Channel calls it. But the next snowstorm that's going to organize a little bit even further to the south of that, and eventually develop into a Gulf of Mexico low pressure system, partly due to this high pressure system really infusing into much of the Midwest. We are going to see an Arctic blast with this. On top of that, let's go ahead and actually show you the what we're looking at with the temps real quickly. Here's the temperatures. This cold blast really pushes through, especially starting into Wednesday and Thursday into the Midwest, and even in the deep south, you are seeing temperatures like near Montgomery, Alabama, for example, near Birmingham, as a matter of fact, you're seeing temperatures that morning in the low 20s. You don't typically see that if you are in the deep south, and that's something you are going to have to pay very, very close attention to. But starting around the 9th and the 10th, we are going to start seeing some snow organizing and developing. You're going to have a low pressure system organizing and developing off the Gulf of Mexico. Over here, it's going to bring a lot of precip and especially a lot of snow to Texas right here. Dallas, Fort Worth, according to the European, is going to be seeing a lot of snow from this as this organizes right along the Gulf Coast right here. This right here, if this verifies, is the start of a classic nor'easter setup. And what I'm concerned about with this is if it were just one run, like with one situation where like it was a 12Z and then it fizzled out and then weakened some, I wouldn't be as concerned about it, primarily because, okay, it's just one run, it's a little bit outlandish, but based on what I'm looking at and considering the synoptic setup we are also seeing with this, I am taking this much more seriously than I'm sure some people in the community are, mainly because of how consistent the European has been, and the European historically has been very good with nor'easters. For example, in January 2022 was the January 30th snowstorm. For a lot of you guys in Boston and New York City and those areas, a good example of that is kind of what that's a good example. The European was calling for like over 20 inches of snow, and then the GFS was at like 3 days before it happened, calling for like 5, and then the GFS really ramped up and caught up with the Euro, and boom, we got 30 inches of snow in parts of Boston from this snowstorm. It was quite spectacular. We actually covered it on Pat's Path Predictor. It was our first big winter storm coverage that we had from this. So yeah, if you were a longtime viewer from January 2022, shout out to you guys for being there. But the European is showing this system organizing and developing. Then it enters into the Atlantic and it becomes a nor'easter. As it bombs out, it becomes a bomb cyclone, and then it starts to really ramp up. Look at the pressure. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this real quickly for the Northeast. Let's look at the pressure with this 974 millibars. That is insane. I will tell you that right there. 974 millibars. Now, granted, I'm not sure if it's going to be that strong or not, but if that holds, that is very concerning, especially for like areas around Philadelphia, New York City, Boston, in New England. That is tens of millions of people that could be impacted by that storm if it were to verify. Now, there is obviously a little bit of a concern of if this is going to be a severe weather threat or not. Because of this Arctic blast and because of the high pressure system affiliated with it, it is not going to produce much severe weather, if any at all, because the temperatures will already be too cold for that in the deep south before this storm arrives. And then it's going to bring a lot of moisture up from the Gulf of Mexico, and that's going to quickly convert into snow. And then as it moves into the mid-Atlantic region, that's where your snowmaker really starts to ramp up. So let's go ahead and take a look at the precipitable water first let's take a look at the precipitable water accumulation for this system if this were to verify. Quite extensive, I will tell you that right here. In Texas, for example, in the areas North Texas, we're looking at if you convert all the snow to rain, you're looking at up to 2 inches of precipitable water. So this is going to be a very moist snow if this is to verify right here. And this is going to be throughout much of it. The snow's obviously going to get drier as it moves towards the mid-Atlantic region because of the temperatures and all that stuff. But still, almost 3 inches of precipitable water in Massachusetts, in New Hampshire, in Maine, and those areas. That is going to be a very powerful snowmaker, ladies and gentlemen. And considering that there already going to be cold temperatures in the deep south, it's not going to take a lot for maybe 6+ inches of snow to fall in areas like in Tennessee, in northern Alabama, northern Georgia. Shout out to Mark, by the way, for talking to me about this. I really appreciate you bringing it up. So I figured I'd talk to you about this. But regardless of that, that's the precipitable water. Let's go ahead and show you the snow accumulation from the European run right here. And now, granted, some of it's going to be influenced, of course, by this snowstorm over here. So if you see 30 inches of snow that's not in an area that's already covered, that's because of this huge snowstorm as well as lake effect snow. So I do want you to keep that in mind. But regardless of that, first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on in Texas. In the northern suburbs of Dallas-Fort Worth, up to a foot of snow is possible with this. Now, granted, sure, some would say, oh, Patrick, that's a little outlandish. Patrick, where are you getting these numbers from? This is just one run. This has been very consistent from the European. And just to kind of back up my claim right here, the temperature in that part of Texas is just going to be around freezing. It's going to barely get above freezing that day it starts, if it does at all. And the temperature before it starts is going to be in the upper 20s and that night. So it's going to be impacted by that high pressure system that's going to be impacting the Midwest. So it is absolutely possible that we see a pretty big snowmaker for Dallas-Fort Worth. Now, for areas like in San Antonio and Houston, no, you're not going to see any snow from this. It's going to be mostly rain. You're too far south of that to happen. But if we go ahead and also show you now the Mid-Atlantic for this is going to bring, first of all, in Tennessee, it's going to bring potentially up to 8 inches of snow near Nashville, Tennessee. Memphis around 6 to 7 or so. It's also going to bring a lot of snow to the Appalachian Mountains. This storm is going to stay north of there in North Carolina. But the Appalachian Mountains could see a lot of snowfall from this, potentially up to a foot of snow, which is already not good because a lot of these areas do not have power from Hurricane Helene, and that's going to be absolutely destructive for a lot of those regions if this was to verify. But then you move into the Mid-Atlantic right here, and then look at this. For parts of New York, including New York areas north of New York City, we are potentially looking at over 20 inches of snow. Now, granted, there's a lot of unknowns from this right here. And then if you look at areas in Massachusetts, especially the upper elevations as well, I feel like there is a higher elevation bias to this, but potentially up to 30 inches of snow in the upper elevations if this run was to verify right here. And this isn't just one model run either. The 12Z is showing a good, from yesterday, showing a good setup. The 6Z is also showing a similar setup to this as well. Now, snow accumulation is going to maybe wobble back and forth a little bit, but still, at least a foot of snow for New York City, at least a foot of snow for much of Connecticut, especially northwestern Connecticut where it's more mountainous. You could see up to 2 feet of snow. Boston could see 18 inches of snow from this snowstorm as well. This is going to cause major travel issues if this was to verify, and we're going to have to keep you updated on that. But at this current point, if you're in Massachusetts, if you're in New York, and you're in those areas right there, it's still too early. My main focus, obviously, is going to be on the snowstorm that's currently impacting the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic region as well. So wait for more information on that. I will continue to keep you updated, but regardless, this is going to be a very serious situation if this was to verify. Now, the GFS and the GMGDPS aren't exactly picking up on this. They're still picking up on the general synoptic setup of this, but here's what the GEM-GDPS is showing. The GEM-GDPS wants an ice storm for much of Texas, which would actually be even worse for especially DFW because you can't drive on ice, and what happened in Kansas City really reflects that. So if anything, you should take what's going on over there and as gospel as what could potentially be going on in the next little week. Now, the GEM-GDPS doesn't have it as nearly as powerful of a system. GFS similar situation as well. It starts organizing and developing. It causes a lot of problems for Tennessee, North Carolina, and those areas, but doesn't get nearly as close to to New England in the Mid-Atlantic. So yes, the synoptics are there for it, but the exact track and the exact intensity is a little bit more uncertain, and we'll continue to keep you updated on that here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. Shout out to Daniel as an official sponsor of the Pat's Path Predictor channel. If you want to support the channel more directly, be sure to join the Patreon. It's the first link in the description down below. If you want to come talk to us about this storm in Storms United, be sure to join the Discord server. It's the end screen link right over there. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.